All right. Morphing into investigative mode today as we dive deep
dive.
into the world of Haim Saban,
The mastermind.
the mastermind behind the Power Rangers.
Okay.
You know, those colorfully costumed heroes fighting for truth and justice.
Yeah.
But what about the man who brought them to life?
Right.
Is he more aligned with the wise Zordon or the power-hungry Lord Zedd?
Oh,
That's the million-dollar question we're tackling today.
big question.
Big one.
What's so intriguing about Saban is that his journey,
Yeah.
much like the Power Rangers themselves, is full of twists and turns.
Okay.
I mean, from modest beginnings,
Yeah.
immigrating to Israel from Egypt as a child, he built an empire.
An empire
Yeah.
media mogul worth billions.
Billions.
Exactly. He founded Saban Entertainment, the powerhouse behind not just the Power Rangers,
Right.
but a whole universe of shows that many of us grew up with.
A lot of nostalgia there.
Nostalgia overload.
Yeah.
But there's a shadow lurking behind this bright and shiny legacy. And that's what we're going to unpack.
Gotta unpack it.
Gotta unpack it.
Think of those iconic Power Rangers lyrics.
Yeah.
Go Power Rangers.
So heroic.
Sounds heroic, right?
Yeah.
But then there's that other line, take and conquer is your honor, weak of soul and mind.
Whoa.
Almost a chilling foreshadowing given the accusations leveled against Saban.
Okay, let's dive into those accusations.
Let's do it.
We've got sources claiming that Saban's treatment of the Power Ranger actors was far from heroic.
Oh,
We're talking about allegations of meager wages,
okay.
a paltry $600 a week
600.
for grueling 60 to 70-hour work weeks,
Oh, wow.
and no residuals from the massive merchandising profits
Yeah.
generated by those very characters they brought to life.
So you're working all those hours and you get
Yeah, and you don't see any of that,
the back end.
that back end.
Yeah, it's important to remember the context here.
Okay.
This was the 90s.
90s.
And sadly, such practices were rampant in the entertainment industry,
Yeah.
especially when dealing with young, inexperienced actors.
Right, so a systemic issue.
Systemic.
But still, it casts a dark cloud over Saban's image,
It does.
especially when you contrast it
Yeah.
with the values the Power Rangers supposedly embody.
Right.
Teamwork, fairness, standing up for the underdog,
All those good things.
all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And those accusations don't stop at the Power Rangers set.
Oh, really?
There are claims of similar exploitative practices
Oh.
in Saban's broader business ventures.
Okay.
This guy's a deal maker,
Big time.
amassing a fortune estimated at $2.8 billion
Wow.
through major media acquisitions like ProSiebenSat.1 Media, a European broadcasting giant,
Huge.
and Univision Communications,
Oh, wow.
a major player in Spanish-language media.
So we're talking huge.
Huge,
Media landscape.
controlling a huge chunk of the media landscape.
Wow.
And this is where things get even more interesting, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because Saban isn't just a businessman. He's a major player in the political arena.
Oh, that's right.
Right on out. Saban is known
Yeah.
for his deep pockets
Deep pockets.
and even deeper political involvement,
Oh, wow.
primarily aligning with the Democratic Party
Okay.
and pro-Israel causes. His close ties to the Clintons are well documented,
Yeah.
as is his willingness to spend whatever it takes to support their campaigns
Wow.
and influence policy.
So we're talking about an activist donor
An activist donor.
who leverages his wealth to push specific agendas.
Now, on one hand, you could argue it's his right
Mm-hmm.
to support causes he believes in.
Sure.
But then it raises the question, what are those causes?
Right.
And what impact do they have?
And that brings us to the most sensitive, most complex aspect of Saban's legacy. The allegations that his actions, particularly his unwavering support for Israel, contribute to the suffering of Palestinians. We're venturing into a minefield here.
A minefield.
A conflict steeped in history and pain.
Okay, let's carefully navigate this.
Right.
Our sources present a stark picture. Accusations that Israel intentionally deprives Palestinians in Gaza
Okay.
of basic necessities like water,
Wow.
potentially constituting what some call acts of genocide.
That's heavy stuff.
That's heavy stuff.
Absolutely. To grasp the gravity of these claims, we need to delve into the historical context.
Okay.
Israel's blockade of Gaza,
Right.
imposed citing security concerns,
Okay.
restricts the flow of vital resources, including water.
Right.
This has sparked fierce debate
Yeah.
and international legal scrutiny.
So while Israel may argue it's acting in self-defense.
Yeah.
The blockade's impact on Palestinian civilians raises serious concerns.
It does.
And this is where the concept of social murder comes into play, right?
Yes. Social murder refers to how societal structures and policies, even without direct intent to kill, can create conditions that lead to death and suffering.
Wow.
Critics argue that the blockade, by depriving Palestinians of essential resources, fits this definition.
That's a chilling thought. So how does this all tie back to Saban?
Yeah.
We know he's a staunch supporter of Israel, a major donor to pro-Israel causes.
Right.
Does that make him complicit in these alleged atrocities?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
It's important to remember that supporting a country doesn't necessarily translate to endorsing every single one of its actions.
Okay.
But when that support involves significant financial contributions, that potentially influence policies with such dire consequences, it does raise some serious ethical questions.
Okay, so we've got this complex web of accusations, political maneuvering, and potential human suffering.
Yeah.
It's starting to feel almost like a Power Rangers episode. Yeah.
And more like a real-life geopolitical thriller.
It is, and just like any good thriller, there are twists and turns, shades of gray, and no easy answers.
All right, let's take a breath here.
Okay.
And recap what we've uncovered so far.
So good.
We've got allegations of worker exploitation on the Power Rangers set, questions about Saban's influence on media content through his massive acquisitions, and now this incredibly sensitive and complex issue of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the potential role Saban plays in it.
It's a lot to process, but it all circles back to our initial question. Is Haim Saban more like the benevolent Zordon, guiding humanity towards a brighter future? Or is there a darker side to him? A hint of Lord Zedd's ruthlessness and thirst for power.
So much to unpack.
We're going to keep digging in part 2, so stay tuned.
Really?
Picking up where we left off, it's clear we're dealing with a figure.
Far more complex than a Saturday morning cartoon character.
Right.
But before we jump to conclusions, let's examine these accusations of genocide a bit closer. It's a term loaded with historical and legal weight.
Right. It's not a word to be thrown around lightly.
Definitely not.
So what exactly constitutes genocide?
Well, the 1948 Genocide Convention defines it as acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group.
Right.
The key here is intent.
Intent. So it's not just about terrible things happening, but about proving those actions. Were specifically designed to wipe out a particular group of people.
Exactly.
It seems like a high bar to clear.
Indeed, proving intent is crucial and notoriously difficult, especially in a conflict as intricate and long-standing as the Israeli-Palestinian one.
Okay, so in the case of the Gaza blockade, those arguing it amounts to genocide would have to demonstrate that it was intentionally designed to destroy the Palestinian population.
Right.
Not just as an unfortunate side effect, but as the desired outcome.
Precisely. And that's where things get murky.
Murky? How so?
There's rarely a smoking gun document explicitly stating genocidal intent. You have to piece together patterns of behavior, policies, and statements to build a case.
Which makes me think about Saban's role in all of this.
Yeah.
He's a vocal supporter of Israel, a generous donor to pro-Israel causes.
Right.
Some might say he's indirectly complicit in the suffering of Palestinians.
It's a delicate issue.
Yeah.
And it's important to avoid assigning guilt by association.
Okay.
Supporting a country doesn't automatically translate to endorsing every single one of its policies or actions.
True, but it's worth considering. When your financial support potentially influences policies with such dire consequences for a specific population. Where do you draw the line?
That's a question each individual has to grapple with. And it's a reminder that our actions, especially those with financial weight behind them, can have far-reaching repercussions.
Okay, so we've got this complex web of accusations, political influence, and the looming shadow of potential genocide.
Right.
But it's not the whole story.
It's not, no.
Saban is also known for his significant philanthropy.
That's right.
Okay.
Saban has donated millions to hospitals, universities, and cultural institutions.
Wow.
He's even contributed to organizations promoting peace and understanding in the Middle East.
So we're talking about a man who funds both political campaigns that some argue exacerbate conflict and peace-building initiatives.
Yeah.
That's confusing, to say the least.
It is. It highlights the inherent contradictions we often find in powerful individuals.
Right.
It's tempting to categorize people as purely good or evil. Yeah. But reality is rarely that simple.
It's like we're trying to fit Saban into this Power Rangers morality framework.
Right.
Zordon versus Lord Zedd. But he doesn't neatly fit either mold.
No, he doesn't.
He's somewhere in between, a blend of light and shadow.
And that makes him all the more fascinating to analyze.
Right.
He's a reminder that power, wealth, and influence don't automatically make someone a saint or a villain.
Okay, let's shift gears for a moment.
Okay.
And zoom in on Saban's media empire.
All right.
We talked about those massive acquisitions. ProSiebenSat.1 and Univision.
Huge.
Those aren't just business deals.
Right.
They give him control over what people watch, what stories get told.
Exactly. This is where the concept of media consolidation comes into play.
Media consolidation.
When a handful of individuals or corporations control a significant chunk of the media landscape, it can have a profound impact on content diversity and the voices that get amplified.
So if Saban's primary motivation is profit, it stands to reason that content catering to the broadest possible audience, content that's safe and uncontroversial, would take precedence.
And that means potentially sidelining content.
Yeah.
That challenges the status quo, content that might make people uncomfortable or spark critical thinking.
It's like that old saying,
Yeah.
He who pays the piper calls the tune.
That's right.
And Saban's holding a lot of instruments in this media orchestra.
He is.
Which raises the question,
Yeah.
to what extent do Saban's personal views, his political leanings, shape the content produced and distributed by the media outlets he controls?
That's a tough question to answer definitively.
Yeah.
But it's something to consider.
Definitely.
Especially given his track record of using his wealth to influence political outcomes.
It circles back to that theme of power and control. A theme that runs throughout Saban's life and career.
Absolutely.
And it's making me think of Lord Zedd again, with his desire to rule the universe.
Yeah.
To bend everything to his will.
It's a provocative comparison.
It is.
And while we're not saying Saban is some evil overlord, it's worth analyzing how his actions impact the world around him.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. From allegations of worker exploitation to potential media manipulation to the complexities of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
A lot.
But there's one more layer to this story we need to peel back.
Oh, really?
Saban's recent outspokenness against rising anti-Semitism.
Okay.
This is where things get even more nuanced.
Right.
Saban has been very vocal about combating anti-Semitism.
Right.
Drawing parallels between historical rhetoric used against Jews and the current political climate.
Interesting.
He's even criticized certain progressive voices, arguing that their anti-Israel stance fuels anti-Semitism and creates a dangerous atmosphere of intolerance.
It's a controversial stance.
It is.
And it puts Saban in a peculiar position.
How so?
He's a champion of social justice when it comes to anti-Semitism.
Okay.
But he's also been accused of supporting policies that some argue perpetuate injustice elsewhere.
So it's almost like we're back to square one, trying to figure out if he's closer to Zordon or Lord Zedd.
Right.
Is it possible to be both a fighter against injustice and a contributor to it, depending on the context?
It's a reminder that people are complex.
Yeah.
Capable of holding seemingly contradictory views and engaging in actions that have both positive and negative consequences.
Okay. I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed by all these layers of complexity.
I hear you.
Is there any way to make sense of it all?
Wait.
Any chance of finding a clear-cut answer to our Zordon versus Lord Zedd question?
I think the most important takeaway here is that there is no easy answer. And that's okay. Embracing the nuances, acknowledging the contradictions. That's where true understanding lies. Fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
How one individual can evoke such a wide range of perceptions.
Yeah.
From philanthropic hero to ruthless power broker.
Right.
It really speaks to the multifaceted nature of human beings.
Absolutely. It's like we're piecing together a puzzle.
A puzzle.
With all these different pieces.
Mm-hmm.
His business dealings. Yeah. His political influence.
His philanthropy. The accusations against him.
Right. And depending on how you arrange those pieces, you get a very different picture.
Exactly. And that's precisely why it's so important to resist the temptation to oversimplify.
Right.
To slap a label of good or bad on someone like Haim Saban.
Because the reality is far more nuanced.
Far more.
He's a complex individual who's both benefited society and potentially contributed to harm.
Right.
Often in seemingly contradictory ways.
Think back to those Power Rangers lyrics.
Okay.
The call to action, go Power Rangers. Sure. It's about using power for good, right? But then there's that darker undercurrent.
Uh-oh, that darker undercurrent.
Take and conquer is your honor weak of soul and mind.
Almost like a warning.
Almost a cautionary tale about how power can corrupt.
And that's the real crux of our deep dive, isn't it?
It is.
Exploring how Saban has wielded his considerable power.
Yeah.
For better or for worse.
We've examined allegations of worker exploitation, potentially shaping media narratives through his acquisitions.
Right.
And contributing to suffering through his political support. Yeah. These aren't easy accusations to brush aside.
But then we also have to consider...
You do.
His philanthropic endeavors. His efforts to combat anti-Semitism.
Right, yeah.
The complexities of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict itself.
All of it.
It's a tangled web.
It is.
And there's no easy way to untangle it.
And that's where you, our listener, come in.
Okay.
We've presented the information, explored the nuances, laid out the contradictions. Now it's up to you to weigh the evidence and form your own conclusions.
Do Saban's philanthropic efforts outweigh the accusations of exploitation?
That's one question.
Does his unwavering support for Israel justify the potential consequences for Palestinians?
These are questions that require critical thinking, a willingness to engage with discomfort, and an understanding that there may not be a single right answer.
It's about embracing the gray areas.
The gray areas.
Acknowledging that even those who fight for good can make mistakes.
It happens.
And that power, even when wielded with good intentions, can have unintended consequences.
It's true. And perhaps that's the most valuable lesson we can take away from this deep dive into the world of Haim Saban.
It's a reminder that the world is rarely black and white.
Rarely.
That people are complex.
Complex.
And that navigating the moral landscape requires constant reflection and a willingness to challenge our own assumptions.
Absolutely.
So as we power down for this episode,
we leave you with this.
Ooh, I like this part.
What does it mean to be a responsible citizen?
Yeah.
In a world where individuals like Saban wield such immense power.
How do we hold those in power accountable?
It's a good question.
While recognizing their humanity and the complexities of the issues they engage with.
Right. And most importantly, how can we use our own voices and actions, however small they may seem, to create a world that is more just, more equitable, and more peaceful for all?
These are questions worth pondering. Questions that will hopefully stay with you long after this episode ends.
That's our hope.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Our pleasure.
Keep questioning, keep exploring.
Keep exploring.
And keep striving to make a difference.
Make a difference.